Hi, this is Mike Evanoff, and we're talking about Google Earth Enterprise. And in this video, we'll be talking about how to add a KML layer. So what do I mean by a KML layer? If you go to Google Earth on the internet, you'll notice that we have things like traffic and weather. And those are data sets that are changing pretty quickly. And so, those are not data sets that you would push through Fusion, build into your database, and then publish to the Earth server. Because by the time you've done that, the traffic conditions have changed or the weather has changed. And so, we want to have the ability for the user to click on a layer and have it be a dynamic layer, have it be data that changes, but not have the user really know or care where it came from. So the user doesn't really care where the traffic data comes from on Google Earth. They just want to click the button and see the traffic. So by adding a KML layer, you can do several things. One is you can add data that changes. But something else you can do is you can add feeds from other organizations. So for example, if you had another group that was providing some other kind of data, as long as they're providing it in a KML format, you can provide the user a checkbox. They just click the checkbox and they start seeing the data immediately on their globe. So let's go through how to do this. And I found some data that we'll add. The USGS has earthquake layers, and so over here they have a whole bunch of different earthquake data. So let's change our globe to put an earthquake button so that the users can click on that and view earthquake data. So this is a KML file, and I'm just going to copy this address, and we'll use that later. So here's my imagery, my vector project. I'm going to double click on it. Now I want to add another checkbox that says earthquakes. So I need to add a new layer. Well, unfortunately, the only thing that is understood by the vector project, it wants a vector resource. There's just no way to just add a layer without picking a vector resource. I know it's a little kludgy, a little flaky, but just bear with me. You can pick any one of your vector resources. Just pick one of them. I'll pick the California roads, okay? Now that we have that resource into our project, we're going to right-click and go to the layer properties. And this is where, under the layer properties, we can start making some changes. So instead of California roads line, I'm going to change that to be earthquakes. Right, so this is my earthquake layer. And under the KML URL, this is where we paste the URL that we'll go to. So this is, we'll paste in, oops, sorry. So this is where we will paste in that URL. So this is the USGS feed that we just copied from that web page. So now we have an earthquakes layer, and then when the user clicks on it, they'll go fetch all of that data from USGS, and we can even change the icon to something different, something that looks like an earthquake. Hey, there we have an earthquake icon. So now we'll have earthquake icons, and I can hit OK. So really all I did was go to the layer properties, change the name, and put in the URL. And when I hit OK, I now have a layer called earthquakes, and that layer will go out and fetch data from a different location. So we're going to save this and build it. And then we'll go to our database and we'll build it. And so now I should have a database that's built. It just succeeded. And I can publish this. And now from the external client, I should be able to see this. And I'm just going to publish it again just to make sure. So I should now be able to open up my Google Earth Enterprise client, log out of my current server, and then I should be able to server sign in to this server, and when it logs in, I should see this earthquake layer. So you can see it right there. We've added it. And if I zoom in to the United States and turn on my earthquake layer, you can see all the earthquakes just showed up on my globe. If I click on one of these, it should have information about that earthquake. So this is how we add a KML layer. and the user doesn't know where this information is coming from. It can be coming from the Earth server, it can be coming from USGS, they don't really know. All they see is a button that says earthquakes, and I've just, in my globe, added data from a completely different organization. So if you're needing to pull data from different locations, the KML layer is a very good way to do it. One of the other advantages of the KML layer is anything that you have up in places. Like, sure, I could have gone to this web page and clicked on that, right? I could have had exactly the same experience. So now I have the data up here instead. You can see it's under My Places. But the problem with this is I can save this to my hard drive. And so if you're giving users links on web pages, you've now just lost control of the data, right? The user can right-click, they can save it, they can email it, and you never really know, is my user seeing the latest data or are they looking at an old set of data? Whereas if you put it in the layers, I'm right-clicking, but nothing's happening. I can't now take this data and save it. I can't do other things with it. I mean, it's always under my layers, and when I click it, I'm always getting the latest information that's being presented instead of viewing an older version that maybe hasn't updated itself recently. So there are a few really good reasons as well to put KML down into your layers. So I hope that helps you to reach out to other organizations, to pull their data in, and also to give you the ability to add data that might be changing. The KML itself, part of the KML spec, is a refresh parameter. So when the user clicks on that button, the KML that they pull can also have a refresh so that every 10 seconds or every 2 minutes, whatever you specify, the client will go fetch the new data. So you can even use this for things like real-time tracking purposes or taking a look at things that are actually moving, and it'll just automatically refresh on the client. One word of caution if you're adding KML layers is that when the client starts, so when you first start the client and log into a database, it will go out and fetch that KML as part of the load process. If you have a bunch of KML layers, if one or two of the servers are down or for whatever networking reason the client can't get to those KMLs, you'll start getting a lot of errors on the client. And if you get enough errors, it just won't start. So if you're going to be adding a lot of KML layers, especially for servers that you may or may not know are going to be up and running all the time, what you can do is add a very small piece of KML to your Earth server. And in that small KML is a link out to the actual data that you're trying to pull. So when the client starts, all it's going to do is pull those little tiny KMLs off your Earth server, and then they'll wait for the user to click that button before the client actually reaches out to try to pull the KML from some other location. So if you're running into problems with bad network connectivity or taking a long time to load those KMLs, you can always put little stubs on the Earth server that then subsequently links out to the actual set of data. Thank you.